All right, I got my man Rob G, the General. What's up, brother?
Yep. What's up? How you doing, man?
Man, hanging in, bro.
You
Blessed.
got your professional sound equipment there. You know, you got your mic extended, you got your popper, the whole thing. I see you, man.
I'm just trying to follow God's will, man. He put me in a different lane, and it's a good place to start, man. You know me from a different life, a different incarnation, and have kind of watched my my spiritual progress. Both of us, hip hop aficionados. Hampton brother. I always got to recognize that. Let me see the shirt. I see it. You got the Straight Out of Hampton U shirt for the podcast listeners. I love it.
My East Queen Street shirt is downstairs, but that's another story.
And so, we're both products of the same, mass media program at Hampton. And so you've been, what's the number on the DJ years, man?
Hey, go back, man. Jack and Jill.
So we go back to Houston. We go back to Houston, Jack and Jill. We've known the same people for a hot minute, to say the least. But so what's the number on the number of years in the DJ game for you?
Man.
You need a calculator?
Right. And some tablets, abacus. Oh man, 36 years. 36 years DJ.
And so had a full stint at 97.9, the box here in Houston, which is has been the preeminent hip hop station. And so how many years were you on the morning show there?
I got hired at the box in 2002. I got on the morning show in 2004.
Okay.
So and then for what was that, 10 years, 11, 12 years, I did the morning show with Hatter. And then they placed me on Boom, where I had my own morning show on Boom 92. So I did that for, I had the own morning show for 1 year. Then they moved me to afternoons. They brought Ed Lover in the morning. And then I went back to the morning show 2017. So, but yeah, off and all together on the radio, almost pushing 18 years.
And so, you've traveled, you've been in the music industry, you've been around, pretty much anybody that if you've heard them on the radio, if you've seen them on video, you've met them, you've been involved, you've DJ'd some, incredible parties. And, I'll take license. I was there for probably your proudest moment as a DJ when you were Rakim's tour DJ in the Woodlands on stage. And man, I was living vicarious through you, brother. Talk about that real quick, about how you're doing the, so every summer, we had a classic hip hop radio show here in Houston, in Houston, one of the few in the country. And so you guys had put together, for the couple of year run that you did, you had this big hip hop festival every summer.
It was called the Boom Bash. Mm-hmm. And so the very first Boom Bash was Public Enemy, LL Cool J, Scarface, Dougie Fresh, Jazzy Jeff. It was an incredible lineup. Big Daddy Kane. It was a crazy lineup. And
we were there, and it was this amazing success. We had, everybody was out on the lawn. It was just this big deal. So the next year, this is the follow-up.
The follow-up, they came back with MC Lyte, Bone Thugs and Harmony,
DMC.
That's what I was gonna say. That was the coup de grace, was that they're having Run DMC and Rakim. And so, I mean, you're talking two of my favorites as a kid. And so, going into the day, I knew I was going to have to interview Run DMC afterward. Now, I met them individually, but I'd never talked to them collectively. So this was going to be my first, I've met them individually and interviewed them individually. But this was going to be but that was with the morning show. So it was more of a collective. This one was going to be an interview that was going to be all on me with the two of them. So
It's huge.
For weeks, I'm trying to think of questions and trying to, listen to things and trying to come up with something different that they've never heard, over their 30-year career. So I'm putting all this pressure on me. As I'm going in to go to interview them before they go on stage, they were going to go on stage a little while later, but they arrived at the venue and they brought me back there to go interview them. As I'm going to go interview them, our promotion director, John Cook, stops me and said, "Hey, do you have your laptop?" I said, "Yeah, I got my laptop with me. Wow, what's up?" Rakim's guy's not here. We need a DJ for him. When we thought about it, we just want you to do it. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
You can't say something like that so nonchalantly. You got to prep me for that.
Like, what? So they say, yeah. So go interview Run DMC, and after you interview them, we're gonna come back and we're gonna run over what you need to do to DJ for Rakim.
Okay, well, let me take a pause real quick and interject something real quick. For those that are younger or just don't know anything about hip hop music, he and I easily agree. Rakim, any list that doesn't have Rakim as the greatest MC, the greatest rapper of all time, is flawed.
I'm gonna give him some grace. He's got to be in your top three. I know
he should be. I understand if you didn't grow up with it, it didn't have the kind of impact on you necessarily. However,
right,
almost any MC will tell you the same thing. If you ask
right.
Scarface, if you ask, and we saw that night, we saw DJ Quick and a lot of people that
Right.
Bushwick, they all give homage to this person. And so he's a hero of mine. He's a hero of yours. And they've just asked you to DJ his set in Houston, in your hometown. You get to be the DJ that drops the needle on some of the classic records of our day. And how did it feel, brother?
Well, here's the thing. As much of an honor it was to be in a position to be on the morning show and kind of being the voice of that station or being the lead on that station, I'm still a fan. And, the year before when PE and Cool J were there, being in the front row, I'm fanning out like everybody else. So I fully expected my experience the second time around to be like the first time. When Flav comes out and yeah, boy, I'm thinking, all right, when Rakim comes out, I'm gonna be front row, front center, losing my mind.
Little did you know.
Little did I know, like I said, that it would be in reverse. I'm back there, and like I said, in the moment when it finally happened, when I finally got on stage, and I think you caught it, and you caught me, and my wife caught me. I still had my fan moment. He's up here, and I've got the song. I'm skipping past a lot of stuff. I got the song set. I got the set list of what to play, when to stop certain parts, and this and that and other. So we're going along, and I've got a little break while he does whatever song. I pull my camera out. I'm like everybody else. I'm filming. I'm filming Rakim because I want Rakim on my camera too, so I can post it on the gram. And my wife looked at me, and I like, you look at me, and my wife was like, what the hell are you doing?
Get back to work.
Back to work.
We got this. We're taping it for you. Don't worry about it.
And you're like, I got it. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get involved. Get involved in what's going on. And so for the longest part of the show, man, I was just kind of playing the background, play a song, maybe do a little scratch or something. Then I say, hey, man, you don't know when it's going to happen again.
Do it.
When are you ever going to get to say that you were on stage DJing, rapping for Rakim? So I just started doing the verses with him. Hyper as a heart attack, nobody smiling.
Mm-hmm.
I just jumped in. So
you killed it.
I don't know if this ever happened again. So
yes.
Yeah, June 11, 2016, my greatest hip hop moment ever.
Nice. And I think what's worth mentioning is that so you're on the most recognized radio station in town. You're on the biggest morning show, and this was pre-Breakfast Club. This was it's what people in Houston listened to was the
Right.
morning show. And so you had an opportunity to do something unique where they wanted to do an all classic hip hop show. They wanted to do, all, music that we grew up with.
Yeah.
It was a separation from the newer rap, just without getting into any of that, it was intentional. It was that, we're going after this demographic. It's obviously your lane,
Yep.
but it, in some people's minds, it was a step away from what was the moneymaker, what is the, what's hot right now. And I have to think that is it. To me, it showed your character to a certain extent, a love for the music when it was, a time when it was Can It Be, it was all so simple then. Shout out to Raekwon. It was something that you wanted to do a better version of the music. And can you talk, that's going to lead me into how we got into this gospel lane for you. But
Well, I think here's the thing, looking back on, and really I'm just, as I'm talking about it, is just kind of coming out, and I never really truly thought about it. Removing myself from the box and going over there to Boom, which was like, it was all same parent company. So it wasn't like I just totally departed. But it taught me, as I'm thinking about it and saying out loud, it taught me that it's okay to go in another direction. Mm-hmm. That it's all right to be in another lane and be recognized for another lane. That and that you don't have to fall into whatever, like I said, the crowd was. Because in some respects, I got, immediately recognized as the old school DJ because of where I was. But now with that responsibility, and it's a responsibility too, because, you got a lot of heads, and, the responsibility is always accuracy, and, there are a lot of things that are subjective in hip hop, but there are some things that, you can most definitely be accurate about. And there are certain tenets that are hip hop truths, and you gotta,
right. Yes.
And you still gotta.
We can have arguments. We can splice and dice who's the best, but what's real and what's not, like, either you have the acumen or you don't. You have to know it. You have to know your craft.
And so for those 2 years, especially that first year, being responsible for my own morning show, and it was me and another lady named Jessica Jeans. And so, for Jessica and I to have to come up with our own content, not rely on the group, the collective that I had with the morning show, where it's 6 of us. And so, 6 of us kind of throw some spitball ideas. Maybe it's just one person whose idea spins and runs the morning show that particular day. This time it was pretty much all on me and Jessica, So I learned different skill sets that I did not have, or had not honed in on during that time. And then, like I said, being comfortable with the fact that, okay, you're not going to be recognized in that mainstream platform anymore. People are going to see you as this, and be comfortable being seen as this. And so that's kind of what's led to right now. I get some of my partners, they hit me with the Rev Rob, and before, where maybe I might have taken it like, oh man, no man, I'm still this, right. That, to I'm not tripping.
Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't then. And I think, that's, as you saying, I really didn't look at it that way either, that kind of prepped you for this. But the thing was, and I remember, to me, it was a great idea. I'm talking about, the classic hip hop station. And but there were people, there were naysayers. There were people that thought that it didn't work. And not only did it work, it blew up. And it's disappointing that it ended the way that it did, but I think that it showed that audience is there. There's a group of people that want to still love hip hop, but they can't get what's going on right now.
Well, here's the thing. And this goes back to ownership. And ultimately, the people in DC who were making the decisions on what was played, they weren't true hip hop fans. They didn't grow up with it. And then it's just certain things, like I said, you got to grow up with it in it to know why certain people, places, dates, songs are important. I can't tell you. You're not going to find it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find it in this book right here. Top R&B. You're not going to find it. I can't.
It's a nice coffee table book, though.
Oh, it's a great book, man. It shuts down many a debate. But, if if I'm just starting a radio station and I don't know the music, then I'm gonna go by that, and I'm gonna put Nelly and Eminem and things that charted. Which,
Or
yes,
if you're playing for another demographic.
but it's not even well. There's some of that, but see, that's going by charts, and you got to recognize there was a time period, and like I said, and this one comes with knowing the history of hip hop. There was a time period when rap was delegated. Well, rap was number one. It wasn't played for several years. The only thing they might have played was The Message and Rapper's Delight. And
Radio play on the mix.
Yeah. So you weren't going to hear any hip hop. They had other stations that had they famously called them the no rap workday. Then you had different. I know in Dallas we had KNON on Tuesday nights with Snake, Big Al, and Casanova Rock. That was our hip hop time.
We had the Saturday morning. We had the AM.
Yeah, the kids jam on Saturday morning, right? And so there were certain things. So if you look in the book, I can't tell you why fresh is the word by Man Trying to need to be played. You just need to play it. There's nothing that's going to tell you. Yes, there's nothing that's going to tell you about Lottie Dottie. There's nothing that's going to tell you about any of these other seminal songs in hip hop. You just had to know it and live it or be a historian of it. And unfortunately, the I'm just going to say his name. His name is Jay Stevens. Jay Stevens was not a historian of hip hop. And so he had this watered, filtered down version.
It was corporate.
After a while, it's cool to hear License to Ill or Paul Revere, but I shouldn't hear those songs twice a day. I shouldn't hear them twice a day. Loses its novelty. Plus, at this point in time, we had over 30 years of music to pull from. And so
that's not a staple. That's not for a hip hop head, yes, hear that every now and then, but that's
cool.
That's
cool.
That's not one of the biggest tools in your toolbox.
No. You should be, if I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this right, I should be hearing Skinny Boys, something like, oh
wow, man.
See? Right. Or some Egyptian Lover or Uncle Jam's Army or something like that. Some stuff that you're not gonna hear, because for our age group, unfortunately, there is a vacuum where our music never truly transitioned to radio.
Yes.
And because it never truly transitioned to radio, we're stuck in that time between what our kids listen to and what our mama listens to. It's very rare, we listen to we would listen to many songs that were instrumentals, like if Paul Hardcastle Rainforest. I can't tell you why that's a hip hop song, but it's a hip hop song. it's a b-boy classic. If you were look at it and just play the instrumental, unless you grew up in hip hop, it makes no sense. But for our age, it does. If I were to play it on Matt, somebody, oh, that Paul Hardcastle, So you just, but
stuff like Art of Noise and like different things that were, Herbie Hancock or just.
Moments of Love makes no sense to anybody who didn't grow up in hip hop. It don't make no sense.
Right.
Come on. Close to
Roxanne, the edit. And I think that, okay, so this is kind of where I wanted to get us in our conversation. There was something special about growing up in that time because of all the things you described. As I was growing up, MTV it became what it was. And for us, we had never experienced anything like it. There was no such thing as a music video. And so there's this new station and it's MTV. And so I speak for myself, I grew up in the suburbs. And so everything that was on MTV, I was watching it. And so I can tell you about, Burning Down the House, the Eurythmics, I can tell you all of those old, songs, because not only were they playing it on the radio, but now we had this visual music thing. It took off. And then,
what they were doing, Ray, is they were teasing the Michael Jackson and the Prince song, and they were making you watch an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they play. So you learning, like I said, the Eurythmics,
yes,
Paul and
Yes, exactly. And they knew people wanted to, they knew there was this audience that wanted to see,
Prince.
but that's actually you're helping me, because where I was going with that was, it was this white playlist. It was this, this, top 40
Yeah.
station. But then Michael Jackson changed that. Again, you would see a handful of R&B videos. You wouldn't see any rap videos. There were no rap videos to that point. The first, block Run DMC and Aerosmith, that kind of kicked the door into where people were requesting and wanting to hear hip hop. And as it evolved,
There were videos playing it. There was a video for the message, but they weren't playing it.
right. They weren't playing it on MTV. And so what we got, it just started to grow. Hip hop, it was growing, and they couldn't deny it. And then most importantly, then there was a wide audience that was receiving it and wanting to hear it. So then we got Yo MTV Raps. And so it was a great moment, that this is ours. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have our own, music that we created. And then I think it's worth doing an autopsy on, because in my opinion, and this is, I think hip hop is dead. I think all we see now is a zombie. Like, we see, we see the same things, the same framework, but it doesn't, the soul is gone. And I think that when we go back and look at it, there's an argument to be made, in my opinion. There's this rumor that there was there's this meeting that they colluded with the people that own the private prisons, and that they were going to change the tone of the music. And about 93, 94, which ironically was, is considered the golden year, 92, 93. You've got all these groups, Tribe Called Quest, Brand Nubian, Native Tongues in general, Boogie Down Productions, Rakim. It was an era where, if you weren't rapping about constructive things, if you weren't a wordsmith, if you weren't talking about, Black empowerment and history and knowledge of self, if all you were talking about is partying and women and girls, there was a place in hip hop for that, but it was kind of like, yeah, you were frowned upon and looked down on, and Luke was a joke, and he had a place in hip hop, but he wasn't taken seriously. And all of a sudden that shifted. It shifted into drug using, drug selling, gang banging, and it just, I think we lost a generation. The music, it just, people that were talking about positive things, their record deals started to get dropped.
It started with the Chronic.
Yes. And that's, that's kind of where it goes. That was where, I've had conversations with people that, well, I think before that, I think NW, I think Straight Outta Compton and Eazy-E kind of changed what could be considered hip hop.
I'm saying it's the Chronic shifted on a commercial scale.
Agreed.
In that it brought these different, the more hard street life to the masses. And that's where the commercialism popped on. Like, oh, okay, let's get on this heavy. And it changed. And it changed the ideas of some rappers. Like I said, you think about Common's song, I Used to Love Her. It describes it perfectly. When it was lost, when she started drinking 40s, when hip hop started drinking,
started hanging out with bad boys.
It changed.
And that's, to that point, when it transitioned into, when hip hop grew up, so to speak, and started like, and that's a perfect song. The way he describes it, she started chasing her money. And when it became more business than art is where I think that we saw this, this split between, there are people that look at it as a way to make money.
Right.
And sadly, in my opinion, in this society, we talked about minstrel shows earlier. There's always been a place for the white audience enjoys seeing Black people be ignorant, enjoys watching the worst of us. And so if there's money to be made doing that, then there were record deals to be had making it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the the rabbit hole that that hip hop went down in chasing this mainstream success.
There's that, and then there's the part with the minstrel shows where white people enjoy other white people doing black things.
Hmm. And
So
that's another angle. I mean, that when you layer in the M&Ms, you know what I'm saying, and they're becoming this, this venue, and I think also
it's not even just it's not even just Eminem. Think about R&B. Michael McDonald is really Hall and Oates.
Yeah, 1619 has a good the 1619 podcast talks about the hijacking of soul. They call it yacht music, but yes, there's always been a and Justin Timberlake. Think about Justin Timberlake he's trying to be Michael Jackson so bad.
All of them.
And we enable it. That's the other thing, is that we they co-opted our best producers,
right?
Timbaland, Pharrell, and I think that, and that's where I'm at, and what the podcast that we're on. I did not recognize how absent God was, or has become in our music until I went through my transition, until I went through what I went through.
Right.
And at a time I could compartmentalize, okay, why do I like, as a grown man, why do I like this song so much that's talking about drug using, drug selling, stripping, all these different things that have become the template for making hip hop music in the 20 teens, whatever it was. As a person that's throwing parties, I'm separating those things, and I'm just like, it's just music, it's just entertainment. And I can't really do that anymore. It's just, it became almost impossible for me to do that. And I think the Holy Spirit is involved, but I had to examine everything that I was ingesting from a media standpoint when I went into my cancer fight. And I didn't really see what God was doing, but at a certain point, I made a decision to just roll with, gospel or things that were inspirational. And that's when I started for the gospel hip hop, what we were talking about earlier, and I was able to find it. And now it's even, when I hear it, it's even more magnified. Like when I hear some of the newer music, or even some of the things that I used to listen to, it just makes me cringe that this is what we have become, as what hip hop has become as an art form, and as a form of music. And this is personal. It embarrasses me, the face that we put out to the world. And I know that's being a little analytical. But that's one of the things that has always bothered me is when I see people buffooning, when I see, the modern minstrel show. I have grown up around in white circles, and I know how they perceive that.
Right.
And it bothers me. Right.
Right.
And so how do we package that? How do we, in my opinion, I think the same thing that happened with the hip hop station, that when you stepped out, and you provided this platform, people took to it. How do we make this more mainstream? How do we make, gospel hip hop, and, just make music that you can play in the car with your kids? How do we marry the hip hop, the gospel, and all these different things?
Well, I think I saw a sermon yesterday, and it basically was talking about releasing the desire for those other things. So I think that's probably the first thing, to not have the desire to hear the degradation, the drug usage.
Well, you have to get born again first, and I guess that's the first step is to increase your walk with God, and that kind of whets your appetite to doing better.
That's part of it. Or sometimes it's just God removing you from a situation. Since I've been removed from the radio station, been on furlough since, then I really have, like you said, I have no desire. I get emails from record labels every day of the new whoever, so-and-so feature with da-da-da-da-da and this and that and other. And I ain't opened not one email. I don't care. There's no desire to hear Chris Brown, the new Chris Brown. If I hear it, I might, but I don't seek it like I did before.
And I think that's a good place to we'll wrap. I think that what has been exposed, in my opinion, is when there's no balance, when you don't have people that are making conscious music, they're not stepping out and doing thing that has any soul or spirit or anything that's not, it's even political, even anything that's even something that is resistance based. When we have a tragedy, when we have something that happened, like COVID-19 and like George Floyd, there are no grownups. There are no people to turn to do the things like Brian is doing. It comes off as inauthentic because you're gonna make this one song, but then the rest of your library is talking about misogyny or any of these other things. And so I think it's eaten itself. The industry has eaten itself by becoming so homogenous with hedonism.
Well, and I will say this though, one thing though, I try to fall back, not saying you were doing it, but I try to fall back on judging these kids because this is what I was listening to at their age too.
That's a good point, but we had balance. That's the thing. We had Chuck, we had KRS-One,
We had balance, but then like you said, there was a time when we didn't have balance and we still rocked it. So, we can't be.
It's true. It's true. It's hard to be. Well, my pushback to that is I wish that I would have done different. I wish that I would have had God. I wish that I would have had.
But you can't get a testimony without a test. So, I look at whoever the kids are listening to, whether it be Gunna, Little Baby, The Baby, whoever else like that, maybe they're amassing this following for God to turn them around and have this people following them too. So,
and my son, he showed me, he told me a video that The Baby did where he rapped the whole song with the guy's knee on his neck and.
Right.
And I think that that's an excellent point. I have to acknowledge that these guys have a platform. These are they're the people that people look up to. And so I don't think we should kick them out, but
we give them room to grow. We got to give them room to grow.
And maybe this is the opportunity. I think that some people don't think there is another lane.
Right.
Some people, they think there's only one way to make it. Right. And that's another show to have is the pitfalls of fame and just, how, when there is no God, for me, I speak for myself, when all there is aspiration and no morality, I'm at such risk in this world because this industry eats people alive. The music industry, entertainment, it eats people alive that don't have a moral compass or don't have a line that they won't cross. And so I feel that you opened, you made me check myself. I can't judge people. I can't judge where I was not too long ago. It's
right.
But what I can do is say I was there and this is what God did for me. It put me in a different lane. You can be
a light post or a guard shack, to let them know what's possible, and that's it right there. I'm in on this. I remember meeting Kool Moe Dee in 2007, and this was at the advent of Soulja Boy, when Soulja Boy first came out, and of course, all this old school heads, we're like, oh, the Soulja Boy is trash. Why would anybody want to what is he talking about? This is terrible. And we've got this interview with Kool Moe Dee, and everybody can't wait to ask Kool Moe Dee how he feels about Soulja Boy, because we want this guy who is a champion, a hip hop curator. We want him to come through.
Because Ice Cube had destroyed him. Ice-T destroyed Soulja Boy.
Right. And we wanted Kool Moe Dee to eviscerate him, to tell him that this was whack and you need this. Kool Moe Dee said something that shut it down and changed my whole perspective on everything. He said, every generation picks their heroes. One generation like Roy Rogers. There's another generation that like Big Bird. Another generation that like Thundercats. So every generation.
It was a backhanded compliment, though.
It
He
was,
put that
but
boy in the box with the Thundercats.
I mean, but it's true. He said everyone they pick something else, and so who are you to belittle? And then he broke it down musically. There's a generation that like James Brown, who went on to like the Jackson 5, who went on to like New Edition, who went on to like Soul for Real. So, you know, it changes, it evolves. And why would a grown man diss a 17-year-old kid because he's talking about the experience he knows? Going to the mall, buying some clothes, getting a chain, hollering at a girl. Well, if you listen to Cool J's album, the very first one, that's all he's talking about. Going to the mall, hollering at some girls, wear some fly kids, some fly gear. It just evolved in the way they said it.
Yeah, I get, and it's a good point, and I wonder when, you know, when is the tail wagging the dog at a certain point, because that's where this is a bigger argument, and it's not just about hip hop, it's about culture in general. The big difference between between Black people and the rest of the world, in my opinion, and not everybody, but for us, we are infatuated with people on TV. When we see somebody that's famous or somebody that's getting notoriety, and the difference is
that's the whole culture one is a whole nother one. And
yeah,
and the wife is calling.
okay, man. Hey, I'm gonna have you back. I'm gonna have you back without question, man. But we'll have another discussion about industry. But you know, what you want to end with?
But how culture infiltrates not only our music but our relationships that's a whole nother one. We'll talk. But I thank you, man, for letting me come on, man.
Yes, God bless you, man. And so we got some synergy going. So we'll I'll be popping in and making some appearances on the sanitized morning mix with Rob G. So yeah. God bless you, brother. And you know, you're the man of God that I know you are, and I'm glad you're showing the rest of the world.
We straighten it up a little bit. Bang. All right, boy.
All right, man. Peace, bro.